Made possible by contributions from the Friends of PBS, members of your PBS station. Thank you.
Good evening and welcome to the special Election 2022 edition of Arizona Horizon. I'm Ted Simons. Tonight we feature a debate between candidates for Arizona's 5th Congressional District, which covers East Valley areas of Maricopa and Pinal counties, including parts of Gilbert and Apache Junction. Tonight's debate is not a formal exercise. It's an open exchange of ideas, an opportunity for give and take between candidates for one of the state's most important federal offices. Dialogue between candidates is encouraged, provided that all sides get a fair shake, and we'll do our best to ensure that happens. Candidates will give opening statements in a randomly selected order, and later will give closing statements in the opposite order. Joining us now for tonight's debate, Democrat Javier Ramos, a tribal attorney, and Independent Clint Smith, a small businessman who owns a law firm. We should note that numerous attempts were made to contact incumbent 5th District Congressman Andy Biggs to participate in tonight's debate. We did not receive a response. Let's get things started with opening statements, and we begin with Clint Smith.
Thank you. It's so great to be here. This district is composed of rational people who just want problems solved, addressed and solved. And we're not getting that right now with our current congressman. We have somebody who is on the fringe of the political spectrum. That's not who we are in CD5. And beyond that, we have somebody there who currently represents us who really doesn't get much done. Has only passed one piece of legislation in 6 years in Congress, and who has also actively participated in the attempted coup of, is related to January 6th and the attempted takeover of the 2020 election. Those things are disqualifying, and it is time for a change. What I've found is that people are interested in an independent effort, and so I'm here to talk about things that matter to people: immigration, water, and the economy. And that's why I'm running for United States Congress. All
right, thank you very much. And now we turn to Javier Ramos.
Thank you, Ted and PBS. My name is Javier Ramos, and I am your Democratic candidate for Congress. And these are my reasons why I'm running for office. I was born and raised in a small migrant community of Cashin, Arizona. I was raised by a single mother. I grew up in the onion fields of the West Valley. I've learned a lot from my mother in those fields of the West Valley. The American principles of hard work, ethics, standing up and respecting our elders, and education was the great equalizer. I eventually graduated from law school, worked in city, state, federal, tribal, international work, both in Arizona and Washington, D.C. When Sheriff Arpaio was in power, and 1070 was the law of the land, we were moving back from Maryland to Arizona. My son, who's in 3rd grade, said, "Dad, are they going to stop us when we get to Arizona?" I could not stand up for my family, but I will stand up now. I will stand up for a woman's right to choose and our democracy. Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much. Let's get things started here. Clint, with you, why should voters reject an incumbent congressman with lots of experience for you?
Because the experience isn't paying off. The problem is, as I mentioned, Andy actually has proposed and been part of 160 some bills. Only one has passed, and it renamed a veterans center in Chandler. That's all that's been accomplished. There's been a lot of noise, and yes, there's experience, but what's been accomplished? Not much. What has been accomplished, though, is that there has been a participation and a leadership role in the efforts to unwind the election, to incite in people the distrust of our institutions, including the FBI and the DOJ, who he says now he wants to defund. There are some just really out there ideas that he's been part of.
Javier, why do you want voters in a heavily Republican district to say it's time for a Democrat?
Andy Biggs has become irrelevant. He votes no on everything. I'll give you 6 bills he voted against. The CHIPS and Science Technology Bill, which would bring infrastructure and technology to our East Valley. He voted against the Infrastructure Investment Act. He voted against the PACT Act to protect our veterans. He voted against the Infrastructure and Investment Act. He votes against everything. And both my Republican opponents, are out of touch with what our district needs.
He told the Arizona Republic that he asks these questions. Is it constitutional? Can we afford it? And is government the best entity to carry it out? And he finds, for the most part, the answers, one of those 3, is no. Make sense to you?
It does not. We're paying federal tax. We're federal taxpayers. We're paying taxpayers. We're paying our tax dollars to Washington, D.C. We need to bring back those taxpayer dollars back to our city and our state so we can build the infrastructure and the businesses that we need.
Clinty says he works with Democrats on the Drought Contingency Plan Act. Again, you buying that?
Well, I don't doubt that he talked to Democrats at some point in his career, but I can tell you this, out of 435 congresspeople, he ranks 432nd as far as being bipartisan. And so whatever happened with that, whatever, but he's not accomplished anything bipartisan of significance.
What makes you...
Ted, can I just interrupt
ahead.
here?
Yeah.
I actually signed the Drought Contingency Plan in 2019 with the Upper Basin and the Lower Basin states. I was born and raised here. When I was 14, my science teacher said, Javier, you're going to run out of water by 2025. We have to put this at the forefront. We are in Tier 2A drought stages starting in January 1st. My constituents, Pinal County farmers, are getting hit the worst. What I would do, we need somebody, with all due respect, we need somebody who has experience in city, state, federal, international, tribal work. I would work with the Upper Basin states, the Lower Basin states. I would support Governor Ducey's budget of $1 billion, and I would put that on the Appropriations Committee so we can definitely subsidize water out of the Gulf of Mexico to desalinate, but we also need to conserve water with our businesses, our agriculture, and our semiconductor businesses.
That $1 billion is over 3 years, and it's acquiring water. There's not much in the way in conservation there. Does that make sense to you?
That's my plan. That's why I indicated there's a 3-part plan. That's only one part of the plan, is to desalinate the water out of Mexico. That only solves one of the problems. The biggest water users is the Imperial Valley out of the southern part of California. They're supposed to put water back into the Colorado River, but they're actually using more water. So I'm here to protect our water rights for our state, but we need somebody who has experience. With all due respect to my Republican opponents, he does not know how to get this completed, how to get it done. He's never worked at the federal level. He's a probate attorney. If you have a probate issue, please go to my opponent if you have probate matters, but we need somebody who can actually get the job done.
Let's let him respond to that.
Well, first of all, I'm not a probate attorney. I've done litigation for many years, and now I do estate planning, and I stay out of court. And my idea is if people can get together and talk about things, they can solve problems a lot better than if they just say, I'm the person who knows everything, and I can make this happen. That's what we have with our current congressman, and it's not working.
Do you, as far as water policy is concerned, since we jumped into that issue right quick here, what are your ideas? What are your plans? What do you plan to do?
Well, it's a multifaceted thing, absolutely. Parties of different levels and from different states need to be brought together. Arizona needs to have a team that works together. And again, our congressman isn't one of those kind of people that puts a team together. And a congressman does have a role to play in that, but we don't get to dictate how it all works. You have different levels of state and federal and local governments. You have private parties, you have tribal organizations, you got all kinds of parties involved in those discussions, and you got to get people together to talk about them. Of course,
Ted,
no
this
one person has.
This is not a plan.
Please finish.
No one person has all the answers, and so what we got to do is find more water sources. Desal is a great idea, and we need to be better at conserving too.
Ted, this is not a plan. What my opponent has been doing is following me and just using my ideas to try to incorporate his ideas. I've had talked about this for over the last 20 years. We need to start really dealing seriously on these issues. If we don't do something, the federal government's going to get involved, and it's going to be something that we're not going to appreciate. And our current congressman has not done anything to bring to the forefront.
Okay, you say the current congressman has not done anything to bring this issue to the forefront. He has been elected numerous times, re-elected. There's a reasonable chance he's going to be re-elected again, despite best efforts here. We'll see how that turns out. What makes you think that Andy Biggs does not speak for the interests and the people in this district?
He speaks on fear. He does not speak about water. He speaks about fear of division. We're the party, the Democratic Party is the party of unification, equality, and inclusion. Andy Biggs is the party of division. He talks about the immigration issues. He talks about defunding the FBI and the police. He talks about fear. That is not the party. That's not the Arizona that I want.
Well, let's talk about the fact that this district re-elects him. I mean, is this the kind of person, these the kind of beliefs, the actions, the behavior that people in this district truly want?
I don't think so. The way this works is in a very polarized environment, and our district is very much a red district. Democrats are outnumbered 2-1 in this district. Andy Biggs got elected by 16 votes in a primary election in 2016. 29,000 people elected him, and once you're in as an incumbent Republican, you're in sometimes they think for life. And so the idea here is, let's have a response, let's have an option, let's have people that can look together and say, is there a way we can have a rational person who is not going to pander to the far right and will be able to get things done and get people together to talk about it?
And mentioning the heavily Republican registration here in this district, 2-1, somewhere along those lines. You're a Democrat. Someone's saying you're playing the spoiler in this particular race, that you're not taking campaign funds, and that with you in here, Andy Biggs is almost assured of victory. How do you respond to that?
It's easy math, Ted. I'm sure you've done your research. Easy math. We actually received 40% of the vote. We received 32%. I don't agree with the numbers. 32% Democrats always vote Democrat, 32%. We get 12% of the independents. That's 40%. The Republican Party, and Mr. Smith knows this too, his own polling shows this, that he's only polling 3%. I'm 3 percentage points behind Andy Biggs, according to their own polling, according to OH predictive polling, which I confirmed with them. We need 40% to win this race, and we're going to get that 40%. Historically, we've always got 40%. The Republican Party is at a crossroads. Are they going to be the party of Trump, the party of MAGA? Are they going to be party of DeConcini, the party of McCain, the party of Flake, the party of Goldwater? My opponent left that party. He only has a 3% polling chance of winning.
Let's get a response. Are you the spoiler in this race?
The definition of a spoiler is if that person drops out, does the person who was otherwise behind then take the lead? Absolutely untrue. That cannot happen in this district. Every Democrat who's run against Andy Biggs loses by 15 to 18 points, and that's what all the polls show. And yeah, they got 40%, but now we're down to an even redder district. The current registration at the last primary was 23% of this district is Democrat, and 34% are independents. So that leaves 40-something, 42% Republicans, and there's a lot of those who are disaffected, and there's Democrats that see the only way to take out an incumbent Republican is as an independent, and so it's name recognition, and that's what we're doing.
I think everyone, Republican, Democrat, and all points in between, would say that inflation is a problem right now. Why is inflation a problem right now? And is spending from Washington, printing money, the whole 9 yards there, is that a factor?
No, it's not. Inflation is a problem because of corporations, and corporations continue making profit over end, over end, over end. No committee is investigating the profit margins that the corporations are making every year. So that is not the problem with inflation.
Would you support higher corporate taxes?
Yes, I would. And that's exactly, I would support the Inflation Reduction Act, which Andy Biggs voted against. The Inflation Reduction Act would not create more taxes for people making less than $400,000 a year. Anybody above that in corporations would pay more in corporate taxes. So yes, I would.
Corporate taxes, do you think that would make a difference, help as far as inflation is concerned?
No, it does not help as far as inflation is concerned. Inflation is based on fake money, false influx of money into the economy, and that's what we've had with several of the bills over the last couple of years, and that is the problem. It's not because corporations have too much profits, and I'm not a big fan of corporations either. I feel like, you know, they have their own responsibility, that we need to monitor that. But that doesn't cause inflation. You're not going to find any economist that says that.
Would you have voted for COVID relief funds, the acts that we saw, the $1 trillion coming out of Washington to help during the pandemic?
Some of it, I feel like some of it has still not been spent, which is beyond belief to me. And so I feel like we gave it out too easy and too much. And that is what causes inflation, too much influx.
Did we give that money out too easy and too much?
If you recall, it was both under President Trump and President Biden.
Indeed.
Indeed. So both presidents, and actually President Trump actually signed off. And my opponent actually voted for President Trump and Congressman
Where'd you get that?
Biggs.
That's not
and
true.
voted for Congressman Biggs at the last race. So
It's not true.
Hold on a second. Respond, please. Is that true?
I have never voted for Donald J. Trump. You're making it up.
Are you going to vote for Cooper or Stanton, who's in your district?
It's none of your business. I voted for who I wanted to vote for, but I'd never voted for Donald J. Trump.
It's a simple question. Democrat or Republican, are you going to vote for the people in my district want to know, is Mr. Smith a Republican?
Well, let's find a different way to ask that. If you are elected, who will you caucus with?
Yeah, so that is, people ask me that all the time. And it's kind of a unicorn situation because the Democrats and the Republicans, they aren't used to having any independents in the United States House of Representatives. So I don't think I'm going to be welcome in either of those major party caucuses, but there are lots of other caucuses that deal with water and the Southwest and other caucuses that I can be part of.
If you're not part of either of the major caucuses there that get things done one way or another, should voters send you to Washington?
Absolutely, because there's so many ways to get things done that are not necessarily related to the caucuses. If you think about caucuses, think about the Freedom Caucus that has done nothing but throw wrenches into everything, even during Trump's administration. That's what Andy Biggs represented and worked on to basically get in the way and say no to everything.
You buying that?
No, I'm not. And the voters in the district do not buy my opponent's sentiments. He was a Republican all his life. He turned as an independent just last year. He moved into the district, which is no longer in the district. He can't even vote for himself. So why would he ask voters to vote for him when he can't even vote for himself? So the number one issue right now, besides saving our democracy and republic, is Roe v. Wade. He is slowly moving left. Their whole objective was to kick me out of the race, to push me out of the race. Now they're slowly moving left. All Republicans moved left, but I'm the only candidate in this race who would defend a woman's privacy rights, a woman's right to choose, and codify Roe v. Wade.
You would codify Roe v. Wade. Right now, it's left to the states. Why not leave it to the states?
Because it's in our Constitution. I really believe the Supreme Court got it wrong. The first thing in our preamble is life, liberty. Liberty is freedom. The whole purpose of the Bill of Rights is privacy rights, Ted, and we know that. The Supreme Court got it wrong when they told everybody that they would never put their religion towards their making on the Supreme Court decisions. I would codify Roe v. Wade because that is our privacy right that every American has a right to.
Would you codify Roe v. Wade?
Not on a federal level. That needs to be a state thing. And I need to go back to something he said that is also false. I did not move into this district recently. I've lived in this district since 1981, and I have voted in elections since then. I don't think you've voted anywhere near that many times. And when I registered to be a candidate in this race, I was solidly in the district. As you know, redistricting came about, and I watched that happen, and the boundary moved. I'm now 4.5 miles outside of my district. If I win, I'm moving down into the district. So
all right. Yeah, that's fair. I want to get back to Roe v. Wade. I want to get back to abortion. You say leave it up to the states. Do you think that is in step with your district?
My district, most of the people in my district think the government should stay out of that.
Are your ideas in step with Congressional District 5?
Yes, it is. And how do I know? I'm the only candidate that got all my signatures. Mr. Smith paid $60,000 to get his signatures to get on the ballot. I've met with voters where they're at. I met approximately close to 30,000 individuals in the last 2 years, and this is what they're telling me. The young people, they ask me the number one question: do you support Roe v. Wade? These are young females at the age 20, 21. And I tell them, yes, that is your decision. Codify Roe v. Wade. And that's the difference between myself and my Republican opponents.
So you think voters in your district would rather the federal government come in and once again put the rules and regulations on abortion as opposed to letting states decide?
Correct, because it's in our Constitution, there's something called the interstate commerce law. So it is, we have to get medicine across state lines. People have to drive across state lines. It's a federal issue, and I would support it, because what we're going to have is you're going to have females running from state to state to state. And that is not correct. We want equality between men's health care and women's reproductive health care.
Okay, let me get a response to that.
And the way we do that is to say, keep the government the heck out of the decision. That's my response to that.
All right, let's talk about immigration reform, and we're going to start with you. What do folks in your district want regarding immigration reform?
So I have experience with immigration issues, and Mr. Ramos represented or referenced earlier SB 1070, 2011. I was a co-chair of the campaign that defeated Russell Pierce, who was the architect of SB 1070. I have credentials supporting my immigrant neighbors. And I do think that we need to have, of course, a secure border, but it also needs to be a functional border. And I've stood for that for many years. And a functional border means we got to work together with the agencies that have responsibilities there, but we also need comprehensive immigration reform. Lots of things need to be changed, and Congress has a major role to play, and they've kicked the can for decades.
Congressman Biggs calls it an invasion. Do you agree?
No, I don't think it's an invasion. It's people who are desperate. They're coming from places where they've had terrible things happen in their life. They're fleeing communism. They're fleeing gangs. But we do need to have regulations in place, so we can't just have an open border. That's not working either.
Your ideas on immigration reform, and again, how those coincide with your district.
I lived the life, Ted. I grew up in the West Valley in the onion fields. When immigration came here, everybody can talk on a theoretical basis, but I've actually had practical experience. When I had friends running from immigration, 70% of Arizonans agreed to this. DACA children should have a pathway to citizenship, and that's what I would do. I actually met with them last week with Proposition 308 and supporting in-state tuition for DACA recipients.
For people in your district who say, and this is, Congressman Biggs calls it an invasion, I would assume that you would disagree with that particular verbiage, but are smugglers flooding the area with fentanyl? Are we seeing a crisis in human trafficking? Is there a crisis down at the border right now?
Nobody wants an open border. That's a misnomer from the right. They all said the Democrats want open border. I don't want an open border. We need a humane situation of resolving those issues. We do have issues of drug crossers, of gun crossing back to southern part of Mexico. So we do have to resolve those issues. We need a better way. I've worked in these areas. We have the second largest tribal nation out there, the Tohono O'odham Nation. And my understanding is that they don't want the border wall being built on there. So it is a multi-pronged approach.
Let's talk about that border wall. You want it completed?
Well, that depends on how you define border wall. There are places where you can't literally do it because of different ownership of that land. There's also places where it's just not functional as far as being on canyons and all kinds of geographical features. But yeah, there needs to be a solid border that would be impenetrable and monitored carefully. And but as far as the wall, if you say that, it's kind of code for finish what has not worked so far.
Yeah, it hasn't worked so far. It hasn't been built so far. Why is that?
Well, because there's just so many problems with people trying to work things out and figure out how to spend it and where to use it, and it's a food fight. Congress is a food fight, and lots of levels in between are. And we can't just go down there like our congressman does and say, hey, there's a big problem down here, and then when you ask him, what's the solution? Well, elect a Republican. Well, that's not the solution.
Well, but Congressman Biggs thinks he does have a solution, and that is to close and secure the border and keep this quote-unquote invasion from happening. How do you talk to voters in the district and say that's not the best way, as you has previously expressed?
Once again, in 2020, there was a Gallup poll done called the Arizona That We Want. 70% of Arizonans want a pathway for citizenship for DACA recipients. Nobody wants an open border. We need to secure the border. It just depends on how we're going to secure that border. We need a humane way of approaching our neighbors to the south. My wife is Navajo. My children are Navajo. They were first here. Everyone is immigrants. Our great nation is based upon immigrants. We have to continue having a humane way of resolving our immigration issues.
And you would vote for the DREAM Act if
yes. Yes, I would. Nope.
As it stands?
As it stands.
All right. Would you vote for the DREAM Act?
I would, absolutely.
Explain.
Well, these kids are here. They know no other country. They were brought here as infants and their parents, again, fleeing from whatever circumstance, taking their life into their hands. These kids we've invested in them in school. There's all kinds of reasons why we need to treat them as full-blown citizens.
And last question, is that what voters, is that what the people, the residents, the citizens of CD5 want?
That's what I found, yes. As far as the constituency, the majority of the constituency, and there are, of course, people that seriously disagree with that, and they support Andy Biggs. And that's how it's going to be.
Gentlemen, we got to stop it right there. It's time now for closing statements. And going in reverse order of our opening remarks, we start with Javier Ramos.
Well, thank you again, Ted and PBS. 50,647 conservatives, liberals, and moderates voted for me to have the honor and the privilege of being your Democratic candidate for Congress. I stand for the principles of Roe v. Wade. You've heard the differences between myself and my Republican opponents. I am the only candidate in this race who will protect a woman's privacy right, a woman's right to choose. I will support, I remember one person by the name of Mary, who was 80 years old in Sun Lakes. She always told me, Javier, this is the first time I ever put a political sign in my house. She said, Javier, don't run just to win. Run to win with purpose, and that is to protect a woman's right to choose. I'm the only candidate who has the experience to protect our democracy. So thank you, Ted.
All right, thank you very much. And now the closing statement from Clint Smith.
I also support the idea that the government should not intervene between a woman and her doctor. I don't know why he keeps saying that. My big thing is democracy is at stake. We are at jeopardy. We've got this serious problem, and there have been no consequences as yet for our congressmen who actively participated in that, who actively proposed the fake elector scheme and then participated in that idea and sought a pardon in conjunction with that, who also proposed that scheme to Rusty Bowers on January 6th, even though he's denied that he did anything on January 6th and thinks the events were terrible. The fact is that's what he did on January 6th, and it's just as bad as anything else that happened. What we need is somebody who will address the problems, who can win this race, somebody who's only put $4,200 into his campaign and is a Democrat with a 23% of their electorate is not going to win this race. A conservative who's in the middle of the spectrum can put this coalition together, and it's growing, and that's what's going to prevail here.
All right, candidates, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next Arizona Horizon debate will be between the candidates running for Arizona's Secretary of State, Democrat Adrian Fontes and Republican Mark Finchem. That debate is set for tomorrow, Thursday, 5 and 10 p.m. right here on Arizona Horizon and live streamed at azpbs.org. And you can watch this debate again on azpbs.org, where you can catch all of Arizona Horizon's past programming. That is it for now. I'm Ted Simons. Thank you so much for joining us. You have a great evening.
When you want to be more informed, Arizona PBS delivers news and analysis with multiple perspectives, thanks to financial support from you and...
Elections are right around the corner, and with recent changes to many election laws, it's more important than ever to know how, when, and where to vote. Mail-in ballots are due by November 1st. More information at aarp.org/az